Welcome to Duty.
Hi, my name is Chris and this is Battle Nonsense. First of all, I want to say sorry, because there was no new video on my channel in over a week, but I had a really terrible cold and completely lost my voice for several days, so I was not able to record anything. Now today we will have a look at all the air units that are part of my Battlefield 1982 project. If you don't know what that is, then please watch the introduction video and the previous concepts, as it will otherwise be pretty hard for you to follow what I'm about to explain here. With Battlefield 1982, I tried to show you a new Battlefield game that goes back to the roots of the franchise. A game that again focuses on gameplay, teamwork and tactics. So since the very first video I have said that 1982 is meant to be the true Battlefield 2 successor, as it builds upon its gameplay and mechanics. It takes the next step without becoming a completely different game. Now, if Battlefield 3 or 4 are the only titles of the franchise that you have played, then my design will probably make you think that I'm trying to turn Battlefield into Arma, Project Reality or Squad. So I can understand why you think that. But the fact is that all the core design elements of my Battlefield 1982 project come directly from Battlefield 2. And I only added new mechanics and some polish in areas where I feel that this will have a positive effect on the gameplay. So at its core, it feels very familiar if you actually played Battlefield 2, or the classic mode in Battlefield 4, which is the closest that you can get to the original Battlefield experience. So in Battlefield 2 the balance between air and ground units was not the best to begin with, but in Battlefield 3 and 4 DICE changed quite a lot of things which made the situation worse. Not only did these changes cause new balancing problems, they also made ground forces perceive jets and helicopters as highly overpowered and extremely annoying. Now, what are these changes or differences? 3D spotting. It allows the players to hit enemies quite easily even at longer ranges, as they just have to shoot below the glowing triangle. Auto repair. It allows the pilot to get repaired automatically after he took damage. All he has to do is gain some distance to the enemy. Pilots and gunners never run out of ammo, which means that they can just stay or camp in one area of the map indefinitely and kill the enemies spawning there. They can also just spam their ammo, as they are never at risk to run out of it. Auto repair and infinite ammo are the two primary reasons why, especially in Battlefield 3, players felt that air units are annoying. These two mechanics allow them to constantly attack the ground forces, as they do not have to leave the battle anymore. Then we have the huge variety of fire and forget weapons that are perceived as cheap, because they only require little experience to hit a target. The versatility of the attack and scout helicopters is also a concern, because they can engage too many different vehicles and the pilot has so many offensive options that he becomes obsessed with these and stops to fulfill the other roles of his vehicle, like transport passengers or provide his gunner with targets. But one of the biggest issues is that players have no problem with abusing air units as taxis. They feel cheap, rather than an important asset required for your team to win the round. The low survivability of many air units also plays into that, especially for the transport helicopter. And lastly, the flight mechanics. Jets and helicopters are in general quite easy to keep in the air, and then there is the 313 minigame speed control for the jets. So all of what I just mentioned are things that were introduced in the Frostbite generation Battlefield games. None of that exists in Battlefield 2, and that has a very noticeable effect on the gameplay. Battlefield 1982 goes back to the designs of Battlefield 2, and this means no 3D spotting at all. The player has to visually identify the enemy in order to hit him. There is no glowing triangle above his head that tells you where to shoot. No auto repair and no auto heal. If an infantry player gets shot, then it's the job of the medic class to heal him. If your jet takes damage, then you have to return to an airstrip controlled by your team to get repaired. Depending on how much damage you received, it might take multiple low-altitude flybys in order to get fully repaired. Same for your helicopter. If you took damage, then you need to return to an airstrip or helipad controlled by your team to get your helicopter repaired. This measure makes sure that you cannot stay or camp in one area of the map indefinitely. You have to leave the area for repairs, which gives the ground forces the chance to catch a break from your attacks and push on to the next objective. All jets and helicopters have a limited amount of ammo. The only exception are the miniguns of the transport helicopter. This measure ensures that jets and helicopters conserve their ammo and choose their targets wisely. It also makes sure that they cannot stay in one area of the map indefinitely, as they have to return to an airstrip or helipad controlled by their team to rearm. And how long the rearm process takes depends on the type of weapon, like a bomb takes longer than the ammo of a cannon. The heat-seeking missile is the only lock-on weapon in the game that the player can fire on his own. For everything else, the player has to rely on his aim in order to hit the target, and this also applies to the ground forces. Every air unit has a very clear purpose, pros and cons. There is none that can effectively engage everything that you can find on the battlefield. Jets and helicopters are powerful and important units in Battlefield 1982, but they are rare and challenging to use. So all of the above is directly taken from Battlefield 2. It's not turning the game into a military simulation, it makes it a true and pure Battlefield game. But Battlefield 1982 features something that Battlefield 2 didn't: a flight assist. When it's turned on, then jets and helicopters are relatively easy to control, similar to Battlefield 4. The downside is that they have slower acceleration, less maneuverability, and a lower top speed than when you turn the flight assist off. If you fly without the assist, then the flight mechanics become more challenging, like in Battlefield 2. You can no longer just let go of the mouse and the keyboard, and your helicopter just hovers as in Battlefield 4. So the flight assist will attract more players to try and pilot a jet or helicopter, but they will only unfold their full potential when you turn it off. So these are a few of the basic design rules. Now, what kind of air units have I planned for Battlefield 1982? Let's start with the smallest, the light helicopter. It is designed as a fast and agile troop transport, which can insert or extract up to 4 infantry players. This means that it directly ties into the troop transportation game mechanic that I showed you in a previous video. To avoid that these passenger seats can be turned into weapon platforms, it is not possible to fire any kind of launcher or throw C4. In addition to the transportation role, the light helicopter is meant to do reconnaissance for your troops on the ground, and it is equipped with a 600-round minigun, which you can use against infantry and targets that do not have any armor. Battlefield 1982 does not feature a huge variety of lock-on missiles, but the pilot still has flares with which he can defend himself against these. The pilot also has a reconnaissance ability, which will enable a UAV-like function. This will then reveal enemy players to your team members for a limited amount of time. But unlike the UAV, this does not work in a 360-degree angle around the helicopter. It focuses on what is happening in front and below of the helicopter, as it is intended to support your troops on the ground. It is also useful for the pilot to assess the situation when inserting or extracting troops. Then we have the transport helicopter, which is the big brother of the light helicopter. Its role is to insert or extract troops, but since it's larger than the light helicopter, it can carry an entire squad, which means up to 6 players. The downside is that it is slower and not as maneuverable as the light helicopter. In addition to the passenger seats, it also has 2 gunner seats, which are equipped with miniguns. These are the only guns in air units that do not have limited ammo, but they overheat quicker than the guns of the other air units. The pilot does not have any weapons available, as he focuses on transporting his passengers to their target destinations, which he can see through the troop transportation game mechanic that I explained in my previous video. But the pilot does have a special ability in the form of a supply drop. These are smaller than the ones from the commander, which means that players are not able to change their class. That only works from the commander's supply crate. The supply drop from the transport helicopter allows players to heal themselves, resupply ammo and explosives like C4, grenades and RPGs, which you cannot get from the support's ammo bag. That one only has ammo for your pistols, rifles, etc. Then we have the attack helicopters, which are meant for air-to-surface combat. This means that they do not have any air-to-air heat-seeker missiles, because we do not want them high up in the sky trying to shoot down other jets. We want them to support their troops on the ground, and as such the attack helicopter ties into the close air support game mechanic that I showed you in the previous video. To deal with enemy ground units and helicopters, the pilot has 2 Hydra rocket pods, from which he can fire 8 missiles, and reload 4 times, which gives him a total of 32 missiles before he has to return to a helipad to rearm. The reason why he does not have more weapon systems available is very simple. He is meant to focus on piloting the helicopter and provide his gunner with opportunities to engage the enemy with his 30mm chain gun and his anti-armor TV missile. For the TV missile, I imagine a design that makes it very powerful but hard to control and rare, as the reload takes very long. As such, it is a one-hit kill if you hit a jet, light helicopter, the rear of an armored vehicle or a vehicle that does not have any armor at all. Everything else will get severely damaged but not destroyed. When it comes to mechanics like zoom optics for the gunner, then I would be very careful, because we do not want to have the attack helicopter sit on the edge of the map or high up in the sky and engage ground units from there. So the attack helicopter is pretty much the same as the one in Battlefield 2, but there's a special ability called Combat Awareness, which helps to steer the pilot and gunner into the right direction. The way this could work is that when a friendly tank takes damage from an enemy tank or a RPG, then the icon of this tank will be highlighted on the map of the pilot. The enemy will not be revealed to the pilot, he will only see which of his tanks is under attack and needs assistance. If the pilot or gunner damages or kills this enemy, then he will receive teamwork points as a bonus, which helps him to increase his service record score and combat points. Next we have the attack aircraft, which is meant for air-to-ground combat, and so it ties into the close air support game mechanic. For that the pilot can use his 30mm Gatling cannon, which has 300 rounds and is only effective at shorter ranges to get the pilot closer to his target and in range of anti-air defenses. What we could also play with here is the fact that the cannon of the A-10 generates so much recoil that it can stall the aircraft if the pilot fires it for too long. So we could use that as an alternative to a simple overheat function to force the pilot to fire it in bursts. Then the pilot can choose to either carry 2 rocket pods from which he can fire 24 Hydras, or he can choose to take 4 unguided cluster bombs instead. Even though the main role of the attack aircraft is air-to-surface combat, the pilot has 2 air-to-air heat-seeking missiles that he can use to protect himself against enemy jets or helicopters. None of these weapons have a reload mechanism. This means that you can fire all 24 Hydras or release all 4 cluster bombs at once. But then you have to return to an airfield almost immediately to rearm. Here you have to consider that these maps are quite large, and so it takes quite some time to even reach the airfield. And the rearm process will also require several flybys if you are completely dry. So you better use your ammo more carefully, as you have to aim quite precisely to deal damage, and the rearm procedure takes quite some time. The special ability of the attack aircraft is the laser-guided precision strike, which allows the pilot to drop a laser-guided bomb on a target that is actively painted by a sniper. If you want to know more about this mechanic, then please watch the video where I explained it in detail. And lastly we have the air superiority fighter, which keeps the sky clear of enemy air units. As such, it is designed primarily for air-to-air combat with its 600 round 20mm Gatling cannon and 6 air-to-air heat-seeking missiles. But if ground units need your help, then you also have 1 unguided bomb that you can use to respond to close air support requests. In order to direct the attention of the pilot to team members who need their assistance, the air superiority fighter also features the combat awareness game mechanic. This means that if one of your team's helicopters or jets takes damage from an enemy jet or helicopter, then you will see that on your minimap. This mechanic will not reveal the enemy. You will only see which of your team's jets or helicopters needs your help. And if you damage or destroy the enemy who was attacking him, then you will receive extra teamwork points, which increases your service record score and combat points. Now, where are the two-seat jets like the F-15E that we had in Battlefield 2? I would really love to have an F-14 in Battlefield 1982, but I couldn't figure out a design where I feel that such a two-seat jet would work. Now, I know that many of you will say, just make it like in Battlefield 2, or make it like the gunner in the attack helicopter. But when I look at Battlefield 2, then I don't really like how the two-seat jets were done there. The pilot has a 300 round cannon, 5 bombs and 4 air-to-air missiles, while the gunner has 4 lock-on laser-guided missiles which he can reload 4 times, so this is 16 missiles in total. This design was really annoying for the players on the ground because of how much damage the pilot and gunner could inflict. Also, playing as gunner was rather boring, as all you could do was spam your missiles, which locked onto ground targets on their own. And if the pilot would constantly do crazy maneuvers, then you had a hard time to lock your targets. But if you played with a friend, then you crushed the enemy ground forces, and that was not good for the overall balance of the game. So I have really tried a lot of different ideas because I want a F-14 in Battlefield 1982. But I couldn't find a design that worked. They all resulted in an insanely overpowered vehicle or boring gameplay for the gunner. Or either the pilot would get annoyed by the gunner or the gunner would get annoyed by the pilot. So as hard as it is, I feel that I need to take my own advice and not add something to this design concept just because I want to have it. If it doesn't work, then it must not get included. So I think that this design concept gives you a good idea of what Battlefield games once were like, and what I want from Battlefield 1982. A pure Battlefield game without any crutches. In the next and for now final video in this series, we will have a look at the communication system in Battlefield 1982, which is the key for coordinated teamwork on public servers. If you're interested in more background infos on Battlefield 1982, then you should have a look at the interview the guys from bf4central.com had with me a while ago. The link is in the description. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris and this was Battle Nonsense.